Platoon Frontages in Combat Veteran and Iron Cross. Let's see, I'm looking at Combat Vet. I had to do more. I had to do more on this because I went ahead and dug out some sources. Talk about the defense, the platoon, and the defense and the offense for World War II. But first of all, I thought, no, I know this was Combat Veteran is supposed to represent infantry combat, yeah, both firefights. So these are firefights, which I would agree with, involving about a platoon with some reinforcements on the U.S. side, and then some type of numerically superior enemy force. That's what I thought. So what I was getting at last time, okay, let me talk about defense first. When I was talking about a defense in 2 or 3 hexes, I realized that, I'm thinking back to my own experience, and now I do realize with more thinking, the experiences I was recalling would actually qualify as prepared point defenses, actually. So actually, it would represent more the improved positions in Iron Cross, which really is not your normal. That shouldn't be considered your normal. Okay, so yes, defensive frontages are going to be wider than attack frontages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just about from this tree, from this group of trees across this front there, 9 hexes. 9 hexes. Okay. Now let's talk about a more general defense. I can call it a more it's not a relaxed defense, obviously, but it's a general defense. World War II. Okay, so using U.S. War Department records, U.S. War Department sources. Okay, I'm gonna average here. Again, I'm thinking about in the attack, 3 hexes. 3 hexes. So let's say your attacker's over here. You're in 3 hexes. Average for attack. So I know there will definitely be some depth, obviously, but it's not going to be that much depth. So let's say, I'll even say if you have a depth of 3 hexes, that's 9 hexes altogether. Let's say, make it easy, 45 soldiers. If they're dispersed evenly, okay, 5 soldiers per hex. That's actually not that bad, but obviously you'd be weighted forward. Anyways, defense though is where it gets a little interesting. So if the average defensive sector is 350 meters, although it could easily be 300 or 200, but if we go 350, that's 9 hexes. So your defenders are, again, along this wood line. And so my point here is that the entire game, if it were more realistic and among general ideas, this is it. This is not detailed enough to have any interesting articulation of force and fire and defense. Way too much detail is lost. So defender is here, attacker is here, and that's it. I don't know what the thought was to have this ground scale. But anyways, I'm not going to talk just about the fact that I don't like the ground scale. I'm talking about the fact that this ground scale, again, how many times are game designers going to do this? You're losing too much detail. You're just losing too much detail. And for a practical, well, actually, I got it. I don't want to talk about the historical particulars here, because again, maybe the designer, well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and assume that the designer did, in fact, consider these particular historical events, and the events could certainly have had physical dimensions that were way off the norm. But that just brings me to another point that I definitely don't care for. Okay, I want, and now I'll get to the point here. It's kind of obvious for the games that I am liking more and more. I really want open-ended system game designs. This game, for example, and I'm going off of what I've read. I think it was Consim World Forums. The game parameters, okay, the game parameters, the firepowers, or whatever they call it, but yeah, the amount of firepower, the combat values are keyed to this ground and these particular firefights. And I don't like that, right? I actually thought about, since I wasn't really interested in, I won't even say that, but I was thinking, well, why don't I just throw together my own little firefight with a small number of troops on both sides and just try the rules out. But actually, I mean, you can put them on this terrain, but I was thinking about putting them off on another map, and I was like, oh yeah, all these design parameters, well, I'll say all the important ones. Okay, I'll say all the important ones for combat, for attacking, and I guess it would be for defense as well, are keyed, again, designed for effect, what I don't want, to this ground and these battles. So what am I talking about? I want a rule set where if my individual weapon has an effective range against point targets of, and I'll just round off an easy number, 300 meters, I want a game design that represents the firepower of my weapon effectively out to 300 meters against point targets. I don't want all of the manipulations that designers do these days. I don't know. Does this go back to the beginning? I don't know. I don't know if it goes back to the beginning of these war games, but it is annoying. I mean, when I figured out in this game, these infantrymen they're engaging. They're not engaging. If I understand the rules correctly, they are not engaging beyond 120 meters. I don't know. And then there's the whole argument, I believe that the designer is making about how leaders are factored into this. Now again, I am not gonna, this is not a debate between me and the designer of this particular game, but I do want to bring up one idea, and I'm going to put it in the abstract. Okay, so I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm not. But if a designer, let's just use an example, and this is the problem. Oh, I'm going to run out of time. All right. Well, maybe it'll be another video. Combat systems, design for effect, abstraction. I'll see if I can get to it.